then let's create a program for you. Let's create some structure to help you see the progress that you want. Because the last thing that I want you to do after you're done listening to this podcast today is I don't want you to keep doing the same thing that you're doing right now. A year from now, you don't see any progress and you're like, shoot, I just wasted a year of training. I want you in 1 year, I want you to be reaching goals that you never thought was possible. And that's what you can accomplish as long as you create the structure that you need.
The biggest thing Jordan and I will tell you that we even still struggle with when we incorporate more running is we are not running hard every single time. We are not running a PR every single time. Welcome back to the Grind, Sleep, Repeat podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about 3 fitness mistakes that you are making as a hybrid athlete.
Yeah, these are things that can affect your overall results that you're seeing. You might be asking yourself, like, why am I not seeing results? I'm kind of spinning my wheels. I'm not seeing the progress that I want. We're going to talk about structure today. We're going to talk about how to fix these 3 mistakes and how you can effectively build a program around strength training and cardio, whether that's running, whether that's biking, whatever form of cardio you like. How can you blend both of those things in your program and still make progress? Because I think that's the big key there, that you could do it in your program and you could structure it so many different ways. But the problem is if you are doing these mistakes that we'll talk about today, you're just going to spin your wheels and you're not going to see the progress that you want.
Starting with our first mistake that you are making is you're not being consistent with whatever you're trying to do. Like we talked about, if you have a goal of being a hybrid athlete and you start off so strong that you're like, I'm going to run 4 days a week, I'm going to lift 4 days a week, and you do that for a week and your body's trashed, your body's wrecked, there is a very small likelihood that you are going to continue to do that and be consistent with that. So the best thing you can do is start out small and then slowly add more if you feel like you can. But if you do too much at once, it's like anything in life. If you throw too much at yourself, it's really hard to be consistent with that.
Yeah, I'd be interested if you're listening to this podcast or if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever platform you're listening on. I'd be interested to hear, with our audience, are you new to hybrid training? Are you just starting off? Is this something you've been doing for a year? Is this something you've been doing for 5 years? I'd love to hear. Let us know down in the comment section so we can kind of get an idea of our audience and, how long you've been hybrid training. But yeah, if you're new to hybrid training, it's so easy to just say, I'm just going to start running and I'm going to maintain my strength training program the way it is, and everything's just going to be fine and dandy. But how it actually works out is you need to slowly build into it, just like you did when you first started coming to the gym. You didn't start off lifting 6 days a week when you first started working out. If you did, you would have been wrecked and you probably never would have came back and continued in the first place. So you need to ask yourself, what are your current goals? What do you realistically have time for in your life right now? And then from there, you're going to create a program around that. Like Alyssa was saying, if you're creating a program that is so intense and so time consuming and you really don't have 3 hours a day to work out every single day for 6 or 7 days of the week, it's going to take from your life. It's going to take from your energy. You're not going to be able to stay consistent with it. So again, look at your lifestyle, what you have allocated towards your fitness. And I'm a firm believer that you can train 1 hour a day and still train as a hybrid athlete. You could train 3 hours a day and train as a hybrid athlete. So there's so many different ways to structure your program depending on your level of readiness, your amount of time that you've been training as a hybrid athlete, but also just what are you currently looking to do? Like, are you currently looking to build a lot of strength and build muscle? You're going to set your program up differently. Are you looking to sign up for this marathon and you're trying to PR a marathon? You're going to structure your program very differently. Are you trying to have an even balance of both? You're going to structure it very differently. But the main point, our first tip that we're trying to get across here is you have to have a program that is going to allow you to be consistent. Because if you can't stay consistent, you're not going to be able to see the changes that you want to see.
Yeah, we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. And with that being said too, if you sit down and you ask yourself how committed I am to this hybrid training or this new program, it's going to allow you to say, okay, I know that I'm available Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because my work schedule is XYZ. I know that I can give myself an hour to step away from work during my lunch hour, just for an example. If you commit to making the effort to schedule time out in the day, you're more likely to be successful too. So if you're somebody who doesn't currently get up early and all of a sudden you're like, I have to get up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to do 4 workouts a week and 4 running sessions a week. And so now you're not only putting more stress on your body by implementing in these workouts and throwing too much at yourself. Now you're saying, okay, now I got to get up at 5 a.m. I don't get up at 5 a.m. normally, but now I'm putting more stress and more commitment into this plan. So find something that structurally makes sense. Otherwise, you just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, and I think, there's so much content around hybrid training right now, and a lot of it's good. And, I think people come from different backgrounds and they're at different points in their life. And everybody that we're talking to today, same thing. You come from different backgrounds of fitness. You have different amounts of time, or you have different responsibilities in your life right now. And that's going to control the amount of time that you have to put towards your fitness. So we're really looking at this from our expertise as trainers. We've both been trainers for over 10 years. We've helped clients with all different types of goals, and we've created programs for people that are tried to be crafted around sustainability, because we know if we can create a program that is going to allow our clients to be consistent and it's sustainable, they're going to see better progress than if we try to throw too much at them. And yeah, it might be the perfect program and it's like got all these awesome parts and all these, like, it's perfectly crafted. It's got all this training volume and all this running, but if they can't stay consistent with it, it's not going to help them see progress. So that's where we're really looking at this through like the lens of being trainers and creating programs and having that experience in our back pocket of knowing when to tell yourself that it's too much. Because I think it's easy to say like, oh, don't be soft, just work harder and just get up earlier. And it's like, I love that mindset. Like, I have that mindset myself, but I also know, working with the general population, that it doesn't always work out like that. And you have to create something that you can repeat consistently every week, because that's how you're going to get better. And your strength training workouts are going to come in. You want consistent effort from week to week. You want to be able to slowly add a rep here, add 5 pounds there. And over the course of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, that allows you to build muscle and build strength and change your body composition. Or with running, same thing. You want to be able to slowly ramp up your running volume, or slowly wind down your mile time and your mile splits. And that happens by being able to stay healthy and stay consistent and avoid these injuries that can happen from overuse injuries and overrunning, and just not being smart with your program structure.
Yeah, for sure. Consistency can look so different for everyone else. So if you're following somebody who's been training for over a decade and they're getting up early, doing workouts, twice a day, or able to split their day up and do workouts at different times of the day, that's awesome. But they have a different lifestyle. So they have a really good recovery process too. So their bodies are used to and have adapted to that. Just keep in mind that just because someone else is doing it and you can't do that right away, doesn't mean that you can't get to that point, but you just have to allow your body to have time to adjust and adapt. And there's different phases in life that we all go through. We have young kids, so it's unfortunately not about us right now. And I don't know that it ever will be when you have kids. But with that being said, it's like you have a minimal amount of time, like sports and kids getting up and things like that. But kind of leading into the next point, and the next tip that we have is effort, which kind of goes hand in hand with this. So with consistency, when you're being consistent and showing up and putting in the work, you want to give 100% effort. Because if you don't have a lot of time to go to the gym, you only have 30, 45 minutes, you better make sure that you are giving full-blown effort when you do have the time.
Yeah, I would rather create a program that, say someone only lifts 3 or 4 days a week, but they are way more intense with every single set, every single rep. They are using an appropriate amount of weight that's challenging them. That person is going to see a lot better progress than the person that's trying to lift 7 days a week and run 4 or 5 times a week. And they're just, maybe 3 workouts a week are good and the rest are just junk, and they can't be intense. They can't have effort. I would always take intensity and purpose over just extra volume. I call that junk volume. It's
Yeah.
something it's really not going to make progress. It's not going to help you make progress. It's not going to help you progress the way that you think that it will. So I talk about this a lot of times on my YouTube channel, like sets per muscle group that you need to build muscle. So typically for people that have been working out a couple of years, anywhere between that like 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week is like the prime time spot if they're trying to build muscle. With that said, I would rather you err on the lower end of that. Say maybe it's 10 sets for your chest every single week. You're trying to grow your chest. I would rather have you take 10 sets as close to muscle failure with a really challenging weight and that 6 to 10 rep range every week, because I know that you're going to see way better progress than somebody that is undersleeping, under recovering, not eating enough protein. They're trying to do all this training volume. They're trying to do 20 sets for your chest every week or 20 sets for your arms, but it's just junk. It's not intense at all. So that's just one example. And again, we can really dive in deeper on that, but I would always take more intensity and purpose over junk volume and just addition of exercise just because we think that that's going to make us better. It doesn't necessarily always mean that with exercise, more is not always better. It's the appropriate amount of volume sets, the appropriate amount of load. If we're talking about running, it's the appropriate pace, the appropriate distance, and then the recovery time. There's not always this like blank, you got to run this many times a week. You got to lift this many times a week. Everybody's so different. And that's exactly why creating structure and something you can repeat is so important so that you can make progress.
Yeah, for sure. I think the word effort can look so different for everyone else too. As you're talking about effort, I'm thinking of effort in a different way, actually, which doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like your strength training is like your focus and you're really trying to come in and hit the gym hard and working on like being powerful and explosive with movements. And for me, it's like when I come in, my effort is more of like finding that range of motion, getting a nice good depth in each movement, and like the focus of just instead of going through an exercise and getting as much weight as I possibly can, I want to like have this mind to muscle connection with each movement and feel that squeeze and feel the burn in each movement. So I think effort can be different depending on your goal too. If your goal is I want to build strength, that effort, each movement you have to be powerful, you have to be explosive. If your goal is to be more functional and move better and things like that, it might not be as much weight. It might be more range of motion, more depth, more mobility focus and things like that.
Yeah, your effort is controlled by I always talk about this, your purpose. When you come to the gym, what is your specific goal that you have? When we're talking about hybrid training, there are the main goal is strength training and conditioning. That's the main broad topic of hybrid training. But if you branch it down, everybody has different goals, and that's okay. Dependent on
That's great.
what you're coming to the gym to do, but you have to know what that is. You have to know what is my specific goal, or what are 3 or 4 of my specific goals. Maybe you have a strength goal. I'm trying to get my first pull-up, or I'm trying to get my first 10 pull-ups, or I want to bench press this amount of weight. Okay, you have a couple strength goals, and then maybe we look at, like Alyssa's really good at mobility and flexibility. Okay, I want to increase my mobility in this certain muscle group. Okay, that's a good goal that we can set. My conditioning side, I want to run a 10K in this time. Like there's your conditioning goal. So always have different goals that are based on performance. You're also probably going to have some body composition goals. So whether that's trying to achieve a certain look, whether that's trying to achieve a certain body fat percentage or a certain weight on a scale, that all can be achieved through hybrid training. The main thing that we're trying to get across here is I would rather have you come in fewer times a week with more effort than more times a week with subpar effort. That is always going to lead to more progress if you give more effort. If you're more mentally engaged with your workout, if you are giving 100% of the effort that you have on that given day, I would much rather have someone come in and bring that intensity than it's like consistently, it's like, this is just subpar effort and I'm not going to, I just don't really have it today. If you're consistently not having it today, you need to address your program, take a look at some things because you're under recovering. I think that a lot of people can handle a lot of training volume and you can build up to that. Alyssa mentioned earlier, like, yeah, there's people that are running every day and lifting every day. And, that's something they've built up to, and you have aspirations to do that. You definitely can. There's, nothing that says you can't. It's just not going to happen tomorrow. You have to
Right.
slowly build up to that. And if you do add it in tomorrow, it's going to affect your ability to come in and be intense and give the effort that you need to make progress in the gym.
Yeah, for sure. That was perfectly worded. I think too, as you were saying all of that, my brain started thinking we're talking strength training in this specific episode, but just to touch a little bit on this, when we are strength training and wanting to train like a hybrid athlete, we also have to focus on our nutrition and being consistent with that and putting in the effort to meal prep and, do the upfront work that takes too. So, that all kind of goes hand in hand as well. Like consistently we are eating, it doesn't have to be the same thing, but eating similar meals so that we are being consistent, eating at similar times so that, your body works that way. It does really well when you are consistent. And, it's kind of like we're creatures of habit. We like to go to work at the same time. We go to the gym at the same time. We like to park in the same spot, like we like to sit at church in the same spot every day, or every Sunday. It's like you are so consistent with what you do, and it's just how our brains work that if we're that way with food and that way with a workout, it's more likely that we are going to show up and do it each time too. And as far as the effort goes, if you want to be consistent with your nutrition, you have to put in the effort of cooking the food. If you don't cook the food's not going to be there. And you're not going to be able to be consistent and eat the food regularly and eat and choose the healthy meal opposed to running through the drive-through. So I just want to throw that out there.
Oh, yeah. Nutrition is a whole can of worms that we could talk about. We have talked about before, especially if you're training hybrid. If you're training in this style, if you're listening to this podcast, watching this video today, you need to look at food as fuel. And that is something that has transformed the way that we personally look at food and the way that we prescribe nutrition for our clients, both online and in person. If you are under eating and you're trying to run and lift and have these awesome goals, you're not going to be able to give the effort that we were just talking about. So the nutrition aspect is so easy to skip out on, but it's where you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you have body composition goals, if you have performance goals, if you have strength goals, if you have any sort of goal in the gym whatsoever, the combination of your workouts and your nutrition is such a powerful combination. Yes, you can have one without the other, but you're not going to maximize your results unless you optimize both of them. So we've talked about this in plenty of podcasts before, but eating enough high quality carbohydrates, eating enough proteins to support recovery, make sure that you're hydrating enough, that you're drinking water and using electrolytes to supplement the electrolytes that you're losing through your sweat, and just making sure that you're eating enough. You don't necessarily have to be in a caloric surplus, but you do need to at least be at maintenance if you're trying to achieve certain hybrid training goals.
Yeah.
We've tried that before. I think I've shared this before. When our wedding, my goal is to get to 8% body fat. We were also training for a half marathon while doing so, and I was in a caloric deficit. I was not in a happy place, working long days and getting up early and training hard twice a day. And it's not all it's cracked up to be. So just feel your body, because as soon as I started adding more calories back in, I started getting faster in my runs. I started getting stronger in the gym, and it was actually easier to give the effort that I needed in the gym to see the body fat changes that I want to see on the scale. So don't always think that more exercise, less food is the way to go, especially if you're training like a hybrid athlete.
Yeah, that's where my brain went right away when we were talking about effort. I'm like, how can you give effort if you're not fueling your body properly? So that definitely plays a factor in one of the mistakes that, we've personally experienced, and we're sharing these tips for you guys because we've personally experienced these mistakes as well. Taking us into our last tip, which is going to be training program. So having a training program is the last but most important tip, because if you're coming in and you're consistently showing up at the gym, you're consistently giving effort, but you don't have structure, then you're not going to get the results that you want. If you have a goal to, like we talked about, whether it's, you're training for Murph, you're training for a race, you're training to get your first pull-up, if you come into the gym and you're just lollygagging, throwing weights around, but you're consistent, you're putting in good effort, but you don't have a program, how are you going to get better at what your goal is if you don't have a program? It just doesn't work.
Yeah, programs are so important. Anybody can put a good workout together. They don't have to have any sort of degree of certification. Like anybody can put a good workout together, make someone sweat. Where we set ourselves apart, the difference of what we do is that we create a program based on your goals that is revolved around progression. So the goal is creating structure, not just for the sake of like to be consistent, but how do we consistently set up the program in a way that you're going to see continual progress. So if you are at this point, and you're like, I have no clue how to create a program to see progress, that's something that we can help you with. We offer online training if you're not local. So if you are interested in that, I'll leave a link to that down in the description below, and you can fill out a form and get some more information on that, because we would love to help take your goals and create a custom program that's structured around progression to help you see the progress that you want. But let's go into some tips on hybrid training, on how to structure things. Again, this is going to be a very broad, general recommendation. Like I said, if you're looking for specific ones, we can help you out with that. Or if you have questions, just let us know in the comments. But let's talk about how to structure a hybrid training program for someone that's kind of getting new into it, maybe intermediate. And how would you structure your strength, your nutrition, and your running? How would you structure that?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this before, so I may be going over similar things that in our recent podcasts. But again, it goes back to, okay, are you somebody who's just running right now and you're new to strength training? Or are you somebody who's just strength training and you want to bring in running? So that would kind of depend versus, that's why we personalize these types of plans and these goals for people, is because it can look so different. But let's say you're somebody who is running right now, but you're not strength training. So the way that we would do that is we would have you run, 2-3 days a week and incorporate in 3 strength training days. So your 2 or 3 running days, you want to have them be different. So you want to have a higher intensity running day. You want to have a lower intensity running day where you go for a longer run, more of an aerobic, lower heart rate. And then on your strength training days, we just want to make sure we hit each muscle group. So we have 1 lower body day, and then we have 2 upper body days. You could break that up for like a push day and a pull day. So that's just kind of a basic example. Like I said, it can be so different depending on if you're somebody who's, doing more strength training or doing more cardio. You'd change that up a little bit.
Yeah, you want to make sure that with the running or your cardio, whatever you're doing, there's one high intensity day that you are practicing higher heart rate running or getting your legs to turn over faster. So maybe you're going to the track, you're doing repeat style workouts, you're doing interval style workouts. And then the other days of the week, you want it to be aerobic, slower runs. And again, if you're trying to get into like a race prep for 5K, 10K, half marathon, ultra marathon, your running is going to be very structured and going to be very different than if you are just hybrid training for the sake of improving your health and improving your body composition. So again, keep that in mind. Same thing with your strength training. If you have been strength training for a while and you're trying to strength train them for more than 3 days of the week, you can set it up a lot of different ways. Say you're doing 4 strength training days a week, 5 strength training days a week, 6 strength training days a week. You can start to get into, like Alyssa was saying, push-pull legs. You can start to get into upper-lower splits. If you've been strength training for a certain amount of time, you can train everything twice a week as well. That's going to be your optimal way to do things. But again, you have to look like, where does the needle sit? If you are looking at a true right down the middle hybrid training program, equal balance of running, equal balance of lifting, you're probably going to want to lift about 3 to 4 times a week and run 3 to 4 times a week. They might be mashed up on the same day. If you do that, I would do one of 2 things. If you're running and lifting on the same day, I would either run in the morning, lift in the evening, or if it's in the same exact session, which a lot of times we have to do, I would carve out an hour and a half. I would strength train for about 45 minutes or so. Make sure that you have some intra-workout electrolytes, maybe even some intra-workout carbohydrates, and then you're going to hit your run after you're done with your strength training. If you're somebody that is trying to have the needle more towards strength training, okay, maybe that's where you're lifting 4, 5, 6 days a week. You're still going to do your cardio and running 2 to 3 days a week. Or if you're somebody that's trying to have the needle more towards running, again, maybe you run 4, 5, 6 days a week and you strength train 2 to 3. It can look so different. You have to ask yourself, what are your goals? But the main thing here is that we're trying to get across is there's got to be some sort of program. There's got to be some sort of structure. If you're just throwing the workouts in, you're just going to the gym, and you're like, I think I'm going to do chest today. If you didn't have chest that day and you didn't have that structured, then let's create a program for you. Let's create some structure to help you see the progress that you want. Because the last thing that I want you to do after you're done listening to this podcast today is I don't want you to keep doing the same thing that you're doing right now. A year from now, you don't see any progress and you're like, shoot, I just wasted a year of training. I want you in 1 year, I want you to be reaching goals that you never thought was possible. And that's what you can accomplish as long as you create the structure that you need that is going to help you see the progression that you want.
Something that I also was thinking while you were talking about that is if you are running, 4 days a week and you're like, holy cow, running 4 days a week, lifting 4 days a week, that seems like a lot. The biggest thing Jordan and I will tell you that we even still struggle with when we incorporate more running is we are not running hard every single time. We are not running a PR every single time. It's got to be aerobic. It's got to be drop the ego, throw it out the window, slow it down. And we should be able to run and carry a conversation. Like that's how slow it should be. And the reason for that is because the more comfortable you get in that aerobic state, the faster you will become later. So you need to make sure you're running more, but not harder for more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so hard because we're so competitive. And if you come from a strength training background, you probably have that mentality of like, I got to beat my previous session. So I ran 5 miles in this time last time. I got to beat it this time. Like, that's good. That's the mindset that you have to have when you come to the gym and you're strength training. Running is a whole different beast. And
It is.
you have to, that's why we say you want some high intensity and you want a lot of lower intensity aerobic work, racking up miles. One of two things. One, it's going to help you see the progress that you want so you're not just spinning your wheels. And it's also going to help you improve your anaerobic energy system, which is going to be improved through high intensity. And then it's going to improve your aerobic efficiency as well, which is going to be improved through your low intensity. And it's also going to make sure that you avoid getting injured because if you are running super hard all the time, you're going to run into overuse injuries. We even kind of experienced this stuff when we first started hyper training.
Gosh.
We were running too hard all the time and we were running into knee issues and ankle issues and hip issues. And we're like, what the heck? Like, this is not right. So learn from our mistakes. Make sure that you are running hard 1 maximum of 2 days a week. And then the other days of the week, they need to be aerobic. One easy calculation is 180 minus your age. That's going to give you a number. That's your max aerobic heart rate. Ideally, you want 75 to 80% of your runs to be at or below this number. Now, you might calculate that real quick and you're like, what the heck? How am I supposed to do that? You got to slow your pace down. It's almost like taking one step back so that you can take 2 or 3 steps forward. So trust that process. I promise you're going to be able to have better strength training workouts because you're not burning up through all this glycogen that you are with those high intensity workouts. You're going to be able to stay injury free or a lot less likelihood that you're going to get injured. And you're just going to be able to effectively build a hybrid training program that's going to allow you to progress in the gym and then also in your running as well.
Yeah, you've got to be able to recover from those runs. Just because your goal is to run a half marathon at an 8 minute per mile pace doesn't mean that you should go out and run 8-minute miles throughout your whole training program.
Every single day.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. And for some reason, my brain wanted to do that as well. Or my brain wants to keep up with Jordan when his pace goal is different than mine. So, just because someone else is running harder than you doesn't mean that you have to keep up with that person. A. B, your heart rates are going to vary. So, even if you're somebody who's new to running and you go on a jog and you're like running this really slow, maybe like 11-minute mile pace and you're like, oh my gosh, my heart rate is getting way up there. Even if you have to walk, like it takes time to build that. So you'll see progress the more that you do that. So if you run, walk, jog and try to stay at that aerobic heart rate, then eventually, a month later, you'll be able to keep that 11-minute pace. And then a month later, maybe you're at 10 and you'll see that build up as you go. But it might be where you have to walk, and that's okay. It's not wrong. It's really hard to keep that heart rate down.
Yeah, it is. It's going to take some time, but it will get better. I promise. You're going to start to realize that, okay, this pace doesn't quite feel as hard. Then you can start to creep that pace down and keep your heart rate low, and you will progress. And you're just going to see better progress overall. So these are our 3 tips on mistakes that you're making in your hybrid training program. If you guys have questions, we would love to help out any way that we can. Just let us know in the comment section below. Like I said, we are gym owners and personal trainers here. We have a gym in Nebraska. But if you're looking for more help, we'd love to help you out and create a program for you. Go fill out the form in the description and in the comments below, and we can set up a time to chat more.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next episode.